9:15, which is the time that our second public hearing is scheduled for, and it's a CDBG progress public hearing. And I'll read it. The Town of Littleton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 28, 2017 at 9:15 a.m. at the Littleton Town Office Conference Room, 125 Main Street, Littleton, New Hampshire. Community Development Block Grant funds are available to municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500,000 annually is available for economic development projects. Up to $500,000 for public facility and housing projects. Up to $350,000 in emergency activities. And up to $12,000 is available per each planning grants. All projects must primarily benefit low and moderate income persons. During a CDBG project, a progress update public hearing is required. The public hearing will update the public on and take public comments on the progress of the CDBG project that funded the purchase of manufacturing equipment and training on that equipment at the Hugh J. Gallen Career and Technical Center, 140 High Street in Littleton. Multiple training programs have occurred, and another will be held in the spring of 2018. Provisions for persons with special needs can be made by contacting the town manager's office via telephone or mail at least 5 days prior to the public hearing. Anyone wishing to submit written comments should address them to the Board of Selectmen, Town of Littleton, 125 Main Street, Suite 200, Littleton, New Hampshire. Comments must be received no later than December 27, 2017. Are you going to give a...
Yeah, if you want, I'll read the update that we had prepared.
Would you please?
Yeah. Okay, so the community development block grant funds are available to municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500 annually is available for economic development projects, up to $500,000 for public facilities and housing projects, up to $350,000 in emergency activities, and up to $12,000 is available per each planning grant. All projects must primarily benefit low and moderate income persons. During a CDBG project, a progress update public hearing is required. The public hearing will update the public and take public comment on the progress of the CDBG project that funded the purchase of the manufacturing equipment and training on that equipment at the Hugh Gallen Career and Technical Center at 140 High Street in Littleton. Multiple training programs have occurred. Another will be held in spring 2018. In 2015, a CDBG grant of $169,000 was awarded by the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority to the town of Littleton for the purpose of providing a CNC machine training to help meet local manufacturing needs for skilled workers. $150,000 of these funds was subgranted to the Northern Community Investment Corporation for the purchase of equipment and implementation of training programs. NCIC has purchased a Haas CNC tool room lathe and a Haas CNC tool room mill, which were delivered to Hugh Gallen Technical and Career Center, the training center, a program at SAU 84 Littleton School District at Littleton High School on November 4th, 2015. On-site training for training center staff trainers was completed in January of 2016. Beginning with the spring and 2016 semester and running through the fall 2017 semester, introduction to technical manufacturing courses have been conducted at the training center by the Littleton High School and by White Mountains Community College. A total of 53 students have received training, approximately 60% of whom had household incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. The success of the introductory training courses and the need for more highly skilled labor force led to a memorandum of understanding between NCIC and White Mountain Community College in September of 2017, which provided for White Mountain Community College to explore the feasibility of developing an advanced technical manufacturing program. White Mountain Community College hired an advanced manufacturing program coordinator who, working with the training center staff and local manufacturing businesses, designed an advanced technical manufacturing course which will be offered at the training center by White Mountain Community College beginning with the spring of 2018 semester. Additional tooling and equipment needed to support the supplement the training program, including a benchtop milling machine, has been ordered and will be delivered to the training center within the next few weeks. Throughout the grant period, NCIC and the training center at White Mountain Community College have collaborated with an advisory committee comprised of representatives from local manufacturers. The advisory committee has provided insight and input on equipment purchases, curriculum, and program direction. Now would be time for any public comment.
Yeah, there's comment or questions, now's the time to voice them. Rudy?
Yes, I would like, if it's possible, to know how much the complete amount it will be. This is for 2018, right? That you're gonna ask for, you know, the black grant, right? You ask for the grant for 2018, right?
We're not asking for any additional money. These are monies that have already been granted, and this is just part of the process that we need to inform the public about how the money's been used. And
This amount that you guys give over here, about 1,362,000. On the first line over here, what it's all about. You got $500,000 for, you know, economic development project, $500,000 for public facility and housing project, 350,000 for emergency activities. And, you know,
Right.
do this amount over here doesn't mean, you know.
So that is just information about the program itself, about what's eligible. They have us report that as part of our project. That's general information about the Community Development Block Program, which is administered by the CDFA.
That tells you what's available.
Yeah, not what Littleton specifically.
That's not what we applied.
I know what you guys ask for. That's what's available, but that doesn't mean that you guys already asked for 1,362,000, for 1,362,000.
You added those all up and came up with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we did not.
Right. This was for just the 169,000 that the town was already granted previously.
For 2017.
No, I think it was before that. It was
2015.
2015.
And it's not done for 2018 yet?
No.
Thank you.
Question? You said there's been 53 students go through this program, total so far?
Check that.
And that's just the introduction.
Yeah.
And are any of those working at this point locally, or what's happening with the employment part of it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if, I mean, the whole point of that program was that we had partnered with Rhodabeck, so, you know, the training was worked out between the educators and the businesses, so I don't know for a fact whether any are employed, but I would hope so. You know, that they're getting the training that the business needs them to have.
Okay, well, 53 people have been through it, they're done, correct? In the beginning part of the introduction, have any of those 53 been employed locally?
They may still be students. I don't know what year students that these are referring to, but that would be a good question to go and maybe talk to the committee that's formed
We
to
could
oversee
get
it.
that answer for you.
Yeah.
And I think that Rhodabeck, is it Mike at Rhodabeck would probably be on the committee,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also some people from the community college and NCIC.
Because ultimately, the goal of this $169,000 grant is to put people to work locally,
It is.
right?
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
where I'm just
Rhodabeck
kind of
needed-
curious where we put the work so far.
Rhodabeck needed the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so does Burndy and.
Yeah.
Most of those companies up there need them.
Rhodabeck was the one that in the big emergency need at the time of the grant back in 15.
I believe
Because that was when they did an expansion.
They participated, I think, in this.
They did.
project,
They did.
Financially.
Yeah.
I know it's after the fact, I'm not sure it really matters, but I am curious, what was the reasoning behind sub-granting money to NCIC to purchase the equipment rather than dealing with it ourselves?
You want to describe how that works?
I think it was just to have the equipment owned by a nonprofit, so that you didn't have to deal with the the way I understand it, when the whole project first started, there was a conversation between the high school, the business, and NCIC, and all of the folks in the room were trying to figure out how to make this happen for Rhodabeck to get the trained employees that they needed. And quite frequently, a municipality is given a grant, and then a nonprofit such as NCIC might then loan it to a business or buy the equipment for the business to create those jobs.
Presumably the town wasn't interested in actually owning the equipment.
Well, for the town to own it, it might have been a timing issue. It probably would have required a warrant
I see.
to
Get the grant?
authorize the spending of the money.
Oh, I see, okay.
I think it allowed us a little bit more flexibility to have it done that way.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to what the town is constrained by.
Right, it's just easier.
Also with that staffing and technical expertise, we're not gonna have the staffing or technical expertise to.
And
be able to
NCIC
manage it.
Well, neither, NCIC has staffing and technical fees on a CNC machine.
No,
They're just financing it.
No, and their expertise is in the grant
Oh.
process.
In finance.
Okay,
And she's sitting to my left.
I have a comment. I think it's good that they have this type of program out there because you do have students in high school that do not want to go to college or are not ready for college or haven't decided what they want to do. This gives them some additional trade skills that they may not get anywhere else. You know, a lot of the schools went out of some of the building trades that I think are important because even if you might not use it as a job, you can use it as a home project. So this is another skill that I think is very important, that there are a lot of jobs, not just with Rhodabeck, with this type of requirement.
I think it's a great program. I would like to see the final results, track the final results to see what happens with the students.
Well, whether they're still employed is a question that we can't answer. The initial result was that the kids were trained to went to work at Rhodabeck. Rhodabeck had expanded at that time and had the need for trained people and couldn't find them otherwise. That's why they got interested in the program.
Yeah.
Whether they're still there or not, I can't speak to.
So these were Rhodabeck employees that went through the training program?
No, I don't believe they were hired yet.
Okay, they were new, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but we still don't, I'd like to know if any of them were hired by Rhodabeck or where they were hired at for a training program like that, so.
You know, Ralph, when they had their open house in spring or early summer, their 30-year anniversary, I think it was 30-year anniversary they were celebrating, they made mention of the equipment at the high school as they were walking, people around. I just can't remember if they said they had anybody from those first 53 or not. But they're well aware of the fact that the equipment is there and it's being used.
This program is sponsored by the Education Department. Who sponsors this program?
Who sponsored the
Yeah.
program? The money came from
The Department
the
of
feds through
Education.
the
The department.
feds through the state.
Yeah.
And really, it's one of many programs at the technical center. They do the automotive,
Yeah.
digital video, building trades.
Carpentry.
Yeah,
Building
business
trades.
admin, engineering. health
Ironically,
science.
White Mountain Community College years ago had some of that machinery, and there was no demand at the time.
Hmm.
And by the time this situation came up, they'd gotten rid of it, I believe. But it's cyclical. And there wasn't a demand, so they put something else in that classroom. And sort of went, oh darn, we'd only waited. But by then, the equipment was probably not state of the art either. Okay, I've got 9:30, which means it's time to close the first hearing, which was the betterment, so I will close that hearing. We need to follow up, I believe, with a motion on that, which you have in front of you, if one of you would like to make it.
I make a motion to lay out as a Class 5 public highway the following described roadway. Ledgeway Road, 1,384 feet in length and 50 feet wide as described by Plan 22, Pocket 4, Folder 3, filed with the return. Subject to betterment assessments pursuant to RSA 231:28. Public convenience and necessity support the layout of this roadway as a Class 5 public highway because 6 residents are served by the road, and the cost to the town of Littleton in the amount of $53,499.74 will be reasonable in light of the betterment assessments, the details of which are set forth in the attached schedule. The repayment schedule is assessed to each of the 6 landowners with payment in the amount of $891.57 to be allocated over time over a 10-year period.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is there a discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried 3-0. So the second public, thank you. The second public hearing has to run for another 12 minutes before we can act on that.
Thanks.
We can,
Thank you, guys.
quiet or not.
So now that we've, we have this discussion, now that we've approved that as town road, when does that take effect?
I think
Is
immediately.
it up today?
I think it's immediate, isn't it? Andrew, the question is, when is this action we just took, when does it take effect? It's immediate,
I
isn't it?
believe it's immediate after the road problem plan. And we've already started winter maintenance out there.
Yeah.
I just want to make the change to the maps before we deliver.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We deliver today.
Oh, you delivered today?
We're going to.
You weren't. Yeah. You better call Bob.
I forgot about your alternate reason for asking.
That's right.
Good.
It's good. We were able to do more out there than we had initially thought, once we actually got out on the ground and looked at some of the, like the guardrail and the end of the road. Do some good improvements out there, drainage and for safety, so.
It clearly will be an improvement. They've had a tough time out there.
Yeah.
Spring in particular, once the frost starts giving way, that road is a tough road to drive on.
We took the linear footage of pavement out a little further.
Right.
So, have you been on it since?
I go on, our dog groomer is on that road.
Oh, yes. So you get to see it.
Three times or 4 times a year, 5 times a year.
Yeah.
Or no, more than that, actually.
Rudy?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I would like for you to explain to me something about these numbers. I kind of, if you don't mind, that's a paper that I have. And according to the town manager, he told me that that's the amount of money that you can apply for it, right?
Right.
That's a minimum 1
That's
year.
the money that's available.
Okay, it's available. That doesn't mean you can apply for this money any time that you want it during the year,
I
2018.
think the grant cycle, there's.
Is that
There's a
CDBG?
CDBG, I believe. Is this the community development? Yeah. Money?
And is it economic
That's why I-
development money?
That's why I asked
Yeah.
Yeah.
the chairman.
So there's two different, there's economic development
Yes.
money and public facility and housing projects. The public facility and housing projects can only be applied for during certain times of the year
By the town,
by the town.
Okay.
Municipalities and counties are the
Okay.
only ones eligible for this money.
yes.
The economic development money is a little more flexible, and so you could apply throughout the year
By the town.
by the town. Yep.
How about this other?
This other one, this emergency activities, so, if
The road or something like that.
something, yeah, some
Something
sort of
emergency.
emergency, you could apply for that anytime during the year. So you could go for 500 under economic development, 500 under public facility.
That's, I mean, if they would ask for all, all the
Yes.
grants that they're allowed to,
Yeah,
it comes out of for 1,362,000
Yeah.
that they can apply.
the only thing I'm not sure about is if this emergency might take away from your public facility. That's the one thing I'm not sure of. So it might only be a total of 1,012,000, I'm not sure.
So that's the max amount that the town can apply for this grant yearly?
Through
One
that
point-
funding source, yes.
No more than that.
Through CDBG. Yep. Right.
That's the amount of money that you guys
Through that program.
to that program.
Yep.
If something comes up, you can apply for more,
Not through that program.
not through this program,
That's
something
max.
else,
Right.
you can apply more.
Yeah, if there's, what we look at is if there's things that we already need to do, we'll see if there's agencies out there that have funding that will match those same goals. So that one is housing and economic development primarily. That's the same granting agency that the sewer system is back here, and that we're replacing for 2018.
Do you have an amount of money that you can ask for the town of Littleton yearly?
Those numbers.
Just that, it's it?
For that program.
No,
Yep.
I'm saying general.
Oh, well, there's other programs.
You can ask for $10 million in grant if you want to.
I don't know if
Well,
there's
the
one out
Tiger
there.
grant was, what, 3 million?
3.2.
Yeah, it was more than that.
Yeah, it was a different funding source.
That's a the Tiger grant's a federal transportation grant. It's a different pot of money.
Doesn't mean according to Mr. Braz, if you want to, you can apply for different program
Right.
and reach a certain amount of money that probably the town is gonna really feel about, with the matching and stuff like that, right? It's a-
The history of this town, in terms of a lot of its improvements, are based on multiple funding sources being asked for. Like Main Street being, redone 15 years ago now, I don't know, whatever it was,
Not that long.
10 years ago. It came in through those type of mechanisms, those grants. So a lot of New England towns that don't have a lot of money rely heavily on state and federal grants. It's still tax money, but it's at a different level.
You said the right word, that's all right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, if that money wasn't available for the sewer back here, that would be 70 cents on our tax rate
Right.
to be able to do it ourselves.
Are those grants that he's talking about, are those matching grants? It depends upon the amount you're asking for.
Depends on the
If
structure
the
of the
project's,
grant.
if the
Yeah.
project's $1 million, and you get a 500,000 for grant, then you gotta match the 500,000.
Yeah, and the matches differ by definition,
Right.
depending on the source.
So
But
there's
you
also a
don't-
competitive aspect to it, too. If the town isn't putting any money forward to invest in its own project, then it makes it often less competitive.
But in order to do that, you have to go to the town people on a warrant article
Mhm.
to ask their permission to do that. Vote, okay.
And I think Littleton has been so successful because the voters have been willing to invest in their infrastructure and play a key role in raising funds.
Yeah, that's right.
May I ask you a question?
You're
Chairman.
gonna ask a
Probably
question
resolution.
regarding the public hearing,
Yes.
it's open.
That's all.
Yes.
That's all. Just the money, we're talking about money, right? When you receive, quote unquote a complaint, a complaint from a citizen, right, that it's like you did that one of the meeting, right? Somebody stand up and say, you've been asking too many grants, you remember, I don't mention no names, but somebody asks you, you've been asking for so many grants and stuff like that, you should involve the citizen before you really, overspending. That was the words that it was used in a particular meeting. And this was is a question asked to you. What's your answer?
Well, I guess I would say all spending has to be first approved by the select board through the
Yeah.
budget, and then the taxpayers through approval of the budget. So, and any funds that are received through a grant have to go through and be accepted by the select board, and in order for us to accept them and use them. So, really, through the whole grant process, usually grants, I think all the ones that I know of require that you bring them to the public, get public input and comment and that sort of thing. So it's a public process. If there's grants that are being spent now and used now, those have all been through a public process and continue to go through one. They're not just independently gotten outside of that process.
Yeah, these monies we're talking about here were vetted and approved in 2015.
And all these processes are pretty cumbersome and time-consuming. So, for example, back here, for the CDBG back here was, I think, awarded in late 2015, and we're just looking at hopefully constructing in 2018. So,
I know, but you still reach an amount of money, $7.5 million, and that. What I'm trying, I don't want to really, dig in more and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to say, the relationship in between the town man, the selectmen, and the citizen, right? That they would like to see more transparency about all this money that you guys, request and where you spend. According to the meeting that we have, this individual, that ask you the question, this don't happen. And that's why some people get really,
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking
I
about.
think we've tried to be as public as we possibly can. I mean, there's been a number of newspaper articles, Channel 2, at the deliberative session. I think a lot of the presentation the River District has done quite often and repeatedly, and probably the most in-depth and overview of the grant monies and the total projects that have been going on has been during the deliberative session, where the citizens approved the $900,000 to match all of these monies. But I think they've been as open as possible, and we'll always try to, find new ways to get information out.
Thank you.
Okay, I got 9:45. There's no action required. This was informational. I hereby close this public hearing. And we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application, which I assume you're gonna run with that, Andrew?
Yeah, I might defer to Kathy Conway to talk about it.
Sure. So, the town is looking to apply for $200,000 from the Land and Water Conservation Fund for the purposes of creating a health park over on the other side of the river on property currently owned by Ron Miro. There's a sketch of what's looking to be done on the property. It's just a draft at this point to just give a sense of what could be accomplished, but there would be a wellness park with some outdoor equipment, some parking, almost like a pavilion area that could be used as a skating rink in the wintertime and the farmer's market in the summertime. Community gardens, it would be connected to the existing Riverwalk path and also has the potential to be connected to the future rail trail. We had submitted a letter of intent and were invited to submit a full application. A couple of things of note for this particular program is that if you are funded, the money, the property that is developed as part of this health park with the funding has to remain in outdoor recreation use forever. So that's just an important consideration. They call it a CFC, 6FC program. It's part of the Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund program. So that, like I said, that's just something important for you to know. And so the purpose of today's conversation is to really, answer any questions you might have about the project, and then to authorize Andrew to submit the application for the $200,000 to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It is a state program run out of the New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, but it is federally, the money comes from the feds. I don't know if you have any specific questions or if you want to add any more, Andrew, but that's...
The proposal I put up on the screen so you can see. The proposal includes add parking and recreation and community garden space.
Are there any questions about the proposed application?
This is a grant for $200,000?
Yes.
Yes.
So what's the cost to the town for this project?
We'd be utilizing existing projects for our match. This is a 50-50 match grant. And so this project is connecting with existing projects that were already in process, like the rail trail, for example, and also our transportation alternative program project, as well as a private donation for the park, which I believe is about $75,000.
So, what you're saying is that some of the money that's already being spent on other projects can be used as a match, a soft match, so to speak.
That's correct.
Correct.
But does that add up to $200,000? Because the total
Yes.
cost of the project, I think what Ralph's asking is
Oh, yeah.
$400,000.
Yeah.
So $200,000 comes in to the state from the feds.
Mm-hmm.
How much new money would we be asking for at all?
Yeah, there'll be no new money.
No new money?
No,
Okay.
Yeah, there's a $110,000 Northern Border Regional Commission grant
Right.
for the rail trail.
Okay.
Then there's an $80,000 DREAD RTP, Rail Trail Program grant. And then there's also the $75,000
Right.
donation
Right.
from the private side. So that more than reaches our $200,000 requirement.
So the total project is $400,000, and that includes all the equipment that's gonna be put out there, the cutting of the road, the parking lot, the whole total project is $400,000. Okay.
At this point, we're still working with the engineer to get final costs. So we may not, this is the plan, we may not build the community gardens depending on what the cost estimate looks like.
Right.
All we're gonna spend is
Which
the
is
the $200,000. And today, I can't tell you how far that's gonna go because we don't have the final estimate. This is everything we'd like to do, but we'll do $200,000 worth of work.
And it would really be a basis for future development going forward, 10 years, 15 years down the road. I mean, it doesn't have to all happen at the same time.
Exactly, right. This is, I guess you could say, preserving this parcel
Right.
for public recreational uses.
So application of the grant doesn't commit us to anything?
Application does not commit you. I mean, part of today's meeting is authorizing Andrew to sign the application. Once the application is submitted, if we're awarded, you're also authorizing Andrew to accept that award. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, I suppose you could put some language in otherwise. But that's what today is about, is, authorizing Andrew to make the application and accept and do whatever paperwork is necessary.
Well, I'm
Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, Ms. Conway. I'm Justin from the Courier. Ecologists tell me that the Amanuensis along Littleton's waterfront is particularly susceptible to erosion. Will this project include any erosion controls or permaculture improvements or other projects designed to improve the health of the river?
Yeah, there's a stormwater retention pond, on that plan, right where he's pointing. No, up to the upper peak there. That was a pond, right up, further to the right,
To get over where the,
right by the end of the parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On this side.
So that's going to, the purpose of a stormwater retention pond is to deal with any additional erosion, any additional runoff by creating that gravel parking area.
Yeah, Kathy, I had a similar question. It had to do more with flooding.
Flooding, yeah.
I know we haven't had a serious flood here in town in some years after some cars came out of the parking lot behind the town building there.
Oh, yeah.
Or on the other side of the river, I should say. And I think the Corps of Engineers dredged the river, and it had as much to do with the floodplain down on Meadow Street and the businesses that are now down there. But that section, I think, is flooded.
There is, yeah. Again, if you look closely, there's a flood line, a
Right.
floodplain line. And because this is federal money, we have to go through an environmental process
Right.
where we'll have to get off, we've already submitted it for state historic review.
Right.
We've contacted the Natural Heritage Inventory Bureau to see if there's any species on that property. But again, because it's federal money, we'll have to make sure that we deal appropriately with, there's wetlands on the property.
Right.
We're avoiding most of them, but there is a little bit of an impact. Again, this is just conceptual at this point.
Good.
Putting a parking lot, the structure, the only structure really is gonna be the pavilion, kind of thing. So, we'll just have to make sure that's not in the floodplain and, yeah.
So is the intent of the town to acquire the property, or is it just a conservation easement of some sort on there?
well, we're working on that. I don't know if we came to a final decision. We've been talking about easement and also about subdividing or purchasing. So.
Well, does the $400,000 project include acquisition of the property?
It has to, yeah.
Yeah.
How much is?
So what if we don't acquire the property and we just have an easement, does that bring the cost of the project down? No?
I would suspect that a permanent easement would be less than acquisition.
Right.
Yeah.
And either is acceptable means of control of the property.
So has there been preliminary discussion with the current owner to see,
Oh, yes.
and that the dollar amount is, we're in the range,
Yeah, we've been talking for quite a while, and there's other members of the community too, some of which have been involved with like the personal donations to try to get us to.
So if the idea is to acquire the property, what's the need for the boundary line adjustment on the plan?
I think that the current owner wants to retain that upper corner adjacent to the senior center was my understanding.
Potentially
That's town
for,
property, though.
no, potentially for development.
Help me out here, which part are you talking about?
If you look at the
Where the
kind of
building
checkered
is,
line, you
yeah.
see where the building is, and you can follow the line about along the back of the right-of-way.
Yeah, I can see
Okay,
the
jets up
proposed
and
boundary
back.
line adjustment.
Yep, so that's all proposed as.
Oh, I
part of the-
see, you
of
would
the
retain that piece, the town would acquire the rest of it?
Right, either
Gotcha.
through easement or through purchase.
So it's not really boundary line adjustment with the town property where the senior center is?
Right. That's right.
Gotcha, okay,
Yep.
gotcha, so it's not, okay.
It kind of makes sense, you know, we've had that path going down on that side all the way to the new bridge.
Mm.
And it's an area that I think we've looked at over the years periodically as a possibility for a park. Dog park, skating rink, I mean, this has come up in the past.
Mhm.
It's, I guess I've just never thought seriously because periodically there's water over it, but I think that's being addressed, so.
Yeah, and using it as a recreation green space area,
Yeah.
really, for that area especially,
Yeah.
would be ideal.
Yeah.
And property values along the river district are definitely significantly increasing, and development pressure is going to continue.
At one point, they were talking about developing condos on that side of the river as well, and I'm not sure if it was right there, but
It was,
along that.
it
along
was
the-
right there.
Was it?
And that's why he's been difficult to deal with.
Okay,
This is a huge step forward.
okay.
I would say difficult, very friendly, and.
Well, difficult to
Yeah.
make any progress.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't been difficult, he's been very generous, matter of
Yes,
fact.
yes.
It's his
Interesting
land.
concept.
How much
Right.
Murrow asks for the property, if you don't mind? How much Murrow asks for the property?
I don't know if I really want to
That's
comment
not-
on
that's
that.
not- That's not public. That's-
Okay.
We're still talking and, yeah, negotiating, I don't want to.
Yeah, it's under negotiation.
Yeah, if we got the money and we got this project, and it's called Littleton Health Park, on the title of the application, can it ever change in terms of its title of the park, I mean, the name of the park?
Yeah, I
Sure.
would think so. Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things that in the application we talk about is, you know, they want to make sure that the public knows that this is here and how people can access it. So I would think that you'd put a sign up and call it whatever
We
you
do call
wanted
it
to
the Milton Brass Park.
No, I wasn't.
For a small donation.
I struggle with the word health.
Yeah.
In the context of a park.
Yeah.
Is that parking area down in there gonna include areas where tour buses can park? Instead of on Main Street, they could park down here and the tourists could walk across the bridge? Will there be area for tour buses?
So there's definitely been talk of that, and I think that this is preliminary design, so I think we're definitely open to incorporating some of that.
Okay.
Because that's a good point, and there's been discussion about, you know, tour buses dropping off over there, and what a good kind of gateway it is to walk people right over the covered bridge and into the river district.
Well, just to get the tour buses off Main Street during a really busy period.
Definitely, yeah, that's an issue.
The turning arc would have to be, I mean, the drive would have to be modified
Yeah.
because to turn onto that is a difficult situation, you know, right now, but I think that's a good point.
I apologize, because I'm still learning the process of all this stuff. So we send our application, we're agreeing now to send the application, if we're granted the application, accept it. But then, do we have to go through another process to spend it, or now, or does it,
Karen?
yeah, thank you.
When you accept it, during that process, you'll accept and authorize to expend it for the purposes.
So we
of-
still have to go through the process of accepting it, we're not actually authorizing to accept the money?
Right.
Yes, we are.
I
Well-
thought we were.
Yes, we are. Says we are. The motion does.
Well, you're authorizing
Town
to-
manager to accept it.
to accept it. Correct. You have to go through a process to,
spend
when
it.
you're awarded it, to authorize the expenditures.
Yeah, they'll have another public hearing.
Yeah.
So we go through the public hearings to
Yeah.
just actually spend the money.
This is more requirements with the granting agency. There's also the town requirements through DRA.
The
For the
New
process.
Hampshire SRA's statutes require us to do a public hearing to authorize the expenditure of grants that we do. And
But we don't have to go through another set of public hearings to accept it. We're actually deciding that now, and that's legit?
you're authorizing him to apply and accept the grant.
For the town to accept and expend,
What,
you do have to have a separate.
Yes.
Separate
hearing.
Yes.
so our point here of accepting the grant is moot, because we can't. We have to go through the hearing process. You understand where I'm coming from? I don't want to get stalled later because we went through the wrong process.
Yeah, right. Well, this will satisfy us to be able to say, hey,
We get awarded the
granting
grant.
your, thank you for the money, bring it to the town then through the select board will have to hold a public hearing and accept the funds, accept and expend.
Okay.
This
as
is more,
unanticipated
you know,
revenue.
the funding agency wants to make sure that Andrew's not acting on his own. The board and the public know about this project. So
Okay.
that's sort of what this piece today is about, is making sure that the granting agency knows that you guys are informed, agree with this
Okay.
proposal. And then Karen's talking about what's required.
I understand. All I want to do is make sure
The
we go
process.
through the process properly, because I don't want to be stuck here arguing that we went through the wrong process, I have to go through it all again.
Yeah,
Not assume we can just accept it.
yeah, as we've seen from attorneys in recent history.
Will this parcel, oh, maybe I'm mistaken. Is this the same parcel where the Oktoberfest and the Halloween bonfire was held?
I believe it was,
Partially, yeah.
Okay.
Part of it, yeah,
Will
most of it.
space- Okay, will space still be available for those events or potentially other events in the future, if this goes through?
That's the hope really is to be able to secure this area for those kind of things
I see.
in the future. If it goes, once it gets developed or really privatized.
Hard to have a bonfire.
Those events are done with the permission of the current landowner.
Right, that's right.
I don't know if we'd ever build anything as high as the bonfire got that night, but
Yeah.
maybe this.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Andrew, under the right to know laws, it's possible for the citizen to know how much that particular property is gonna cost to the town. If you know
Yeah,
anything.
once the negotiations are over.
Yeah,
Oh, then it's gonna be public.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
has to be.
yeah. They're still in the process of discussing,
Yep.
so it's not quite there yet.
Yeah, we'd like to be able to have that solidified right now, but we do have a grant cycle that we're in, so.
Do I have a motion?
Oh, do we have wording that we have to use here? And you're starting here, right?
Right.
Move, I make a motion to consider making him, I'm sorry, make a motion that the Littleton Board of Selectmen direct Andrew Dorset, town manager, to submit an application to the Land Water Conservation Fund for $200,000. Furthermore, to authorize Andrew Dorset, town manager, to accept the LWCF grant and to sign all documents associated with the award and to take other actions as needed for acceptance of the award.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any conversation? Comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, sign that.
Pardon?
You need
Oh,
to
he's
sign.
still voting.
Oh, I thought we.
It's process. It's not better.
Passed 3-0. Okay, we're on to the EMS commission appointments. Do you want that, Sue?
Can I just ask one quick question on the previous one you just signed? Is the,
Yeah,
is the recreation building for Remick Park still under,
it's different topic.
going on?
Yes,
Oh, but it's still happening?
yes.
Okay.
That's another process.
Okay.
Yep, there'll be a public meeting on it
Yep.
shortly.
EMS commission appointments. I turn this over to your chief.
Chief Mercieri and Captain Chad Miller have a list of names. That
Thanks, Kathy.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have another one
Happy New Year.
too, so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, at the meeting on November 27th, the board created the Emergency Medical Services Advisement Committee. And since then, we've been taking names of people who have been interested, and we have a slate of names for the board to consider.
Yep. And it's in our packet under the town manager's report. Did you see that? Did you see it, Frank?
Let's see that. It's not going really far yet.
Would you like me to
That
read
was the late one. Why don't you
to read the names?
go ahead?
Okay.
You want to look at the next?
So I'll read the name and then who they're affiliated
That
with.
was a separate document that came this morning.
So
Do we get a hard copy?
No, just need it.
Okay, I've got it here then. All right.
So Dr. Edward Duffy, he's the Senior Vice President of Medical Affairs and Chief Medical Officer for LRH. Georgine Novak, Executive Director of River Glen House. Timothy Muldoon, an advanced EMT and firefighter for Littleton Fire Department. Bill Latula, a call firefighter for the Littleton Fire Department. Reverend Curtis Metzger, Rector at All Saints Episcopal Church. Rick Ball, Sergeant, Littleton PD. Dr. John Spicer, Family Practice MD. Myself, Andrew Dorset, Town Manager. And then the ex officio members, Chief Alan Clark from the Fire Department in Sugar Hill, and Ned Cutler, Board of Selectmen in Easton. And if you find those members acceptable, motion to appoint.
Is there a motion for that slate of members to the commission?
Motion to approve.
Second. Second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0. You've got your group, chief.
Thank you.
That's it. Anything else on that? I don't think so. You guys are,
At this
that
point,
makes you ready to roll.
yeah, we have really 4 proposals, or 5 proposals that the commission will be considering. We have 3 direct respondents to the RFP that was put out.
Yeah.
And then we have Calix has submitted a letter reaffirming their prices in a
Yep.
contract.
Yep.
And then also, the town is going to present the concept of a fire-based EMS
Right.
solution.
And what's-
So this commission will recommend to us which way to go.
So what's going to be presented to the board? Your recommendation or everything? Or?
So all the information will be available,
Yeah.
so if you want to look at any of it, but what will be presented from the commission will be a recommendation of the best solution for the town. So
What's the time frame for the recommendation to come back?
we have a schedule that Chad's been working on a schedule.
So I'll
with the
email everybody
commission.
today, events on the, that you've approved, and we're gonna look to start, have a meeting right after the first of the year. We're gonna meet Wednesday afternoons, it looks like right now, until we come up with a recommendation for you guys.
Good. Thank you.
So,
We'll
so,
have
so the committee's responsibility then is to just review the proposals you've got
Mhm.
and come with that. And how was the request developed?
The request proposal,
Yeah,
we developed an RFP based on our contract needs.
yeah,
and
who's
then,
we though?
The fire department.
Okay.
And myself. And we put that out to bid for public, and we did receive 3 interested parties who submitted, plus Calix. Yeah.
So you have 4 applicants, including Calix,
Mhm.
3 separate, and then,
3 outsiders, Callis, and then the proposal to do it ourselves.
Right.
yeah.
They will recommend which of those 5 courses of action to take, and then we the selectmen, will react to that recommendation.
That's correct.
And again, what was the time frame? I wasn't,
I would think that we could have a recommendation by, I would say, maybe the mid to late February.
It's hard for me to tell you exactly, because I can't
Yeah.
quite predict what the commission will do. We're really gonna stress with the commission that we're on a tight time schedule.
Yep.
And, they may come to consensus really quickly, or, you know, there might be more discussion needs to take place, so.
Can you remind me again what the current arrangements time frame is, when those new pricing take effect?
So new pricing takes effect, I believe it's March or February, mid-February.
February.
Yeah, mid-February. We've been told they will hold the pricing until, I think it was like February 10th or something like that.
It was February 6th.
There are.
They would like a notification whether or not we intend to stay with them.
Right.
February 6th?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have contingencies in place to continue operations no matter which way we go.
So whatever decision that is made, what is the transition time? I mean, if we go with another proposal versus doing it in-house, have we gotten that far yet?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how long do we know when KLEC says, all right, we're not responding anymore?
Right.
And how long is it going to take us to jump at the edge?
So some of that, I'd rather maybe go over in non-public just because it could impact any negotiations that might take place.
Okay.
So, but we do have, we're covered.
Next on the agenda is review and approve encumbrances. I think that's you, Karen.
I have a couple questions here.
Yeah. I have an updated one. Sorry, yesterday we had a couple things to review. I believe you already have that, and I know Seal already has that. The first encumbrance is some monies for our Phase 5 mapping project. It's not finished yet. This was from the 2017 budget of $15,000. The next one is for the police department. We have a wage increase that's withheld at this point from a police officer for a physical fitness program. He's been out, and hopefully when he returns we'll be able to give him his fitness bonus. Mobile radio replacement at the police department. We have a PO, and we're going to be able to get the state rate for mobile radio. And we've included some cost for installation in this. We have $10,000 that we'd like to encumber. The fire department, we have an air compressor which was very, very old, and we've gotten quotes on a new air compressor, and it's going to cost a little bit to install it. The cost for the air compressor is, if I remember correctly, $48,500, and we've included $9,500 because we've got electrical work and possibly some hoses to run, so on with that compressor. On the highway, this was something that we had encumbered last year. We do have some work that's done on it through the engineer, but we haven't got any actual work going for the Partridge Lake wall that's on the Partridge Lake Road.
Okay, so my question was, is that going to be, are they projecting that to be completed by the end of this fall?
By the end of 2018?
Yeah.
I don't know what the engineer has said on that. I just have an engineering bill at this point, and Joe DePalma would have to answer that.
All right.
But that was one that was encumbered last year, and it hasn't.
That's the basis of my
Yeah.
question.
Now, none of this money has already been appropriated
Right.
through the tax process, so this is at no cost to the no additional cost to the taxpayers. At the transfer station, We're just starting to get bills on the permit work and the licensing. And this was an encumbrance from 2017. That's $3,000. And then from the warrant articles, we have the rigging, which I understood should be started very soon. But I can't give you any other information. This is monies that actually came from the Opera House Special Revenue Fund. And that's $15,000. We have some energy conservation improvements. The warrant article was for $44,200. I know that's part of a grant, and that work I hope to start soon. I've seen estimates, but that's all I've seen at this point. We have the road work warrant article. We have about $100,000, and this is monies that have been saved through the process of trying to get lower bids, using up the previous year's encumbrances first before we started using the funds that we had. And this is for crushing, grinding, finish-up work on road projects, $100,000. We have the Dells Dam, which is a continuing project, and we're hoping to get some FEMA grant money and grant monies to work on this. But this was a 2015 project, and what's left is $111,032. We have the Pleasant Street, and that's part of the SRTS grant, and this was the town match, and we're holding for the close of the grant, $86,370. Anything that's not used of these funds, if they're not carried over in 2018, will fall to the fund balance. They can't be used for anything else. Under the sewer, we have ongoing engineering, designing, and infiltration work that's being done, and that's $60,000 that we'd like to encumber there. So the total encumbrances is $549,602. And this is, if you approve this, this is subject to year-end balances. In other words, if we've spent the money, something got finished over the next couple of days, or we get in a bill and it's applied against this, it reduces the amount that we encumber. It can't go up.
Karen, I have one question and I have one recommendation on this report.
Sure.
The question goes back to the Dells Dam. Can you give us any sort of update in terms of where they're at with the 100-year flood scenario that they're trying to address with the dam?
I cannot.
Okay.
I'm only involved on the money end.
I understand. Okay. And then the reason why there's a question mark for FEMA is that that's just something you're considering applying for.
So FEMA has come and toured a lot of the project after.
Yeah, it's been applied for, we don't have an answer.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll be back here, I think, within the next month or so, I believe,
Yes.
for a tour.
Yes.
And the Dells Dam was potentially a eligible project site.
Yeah.
So.
My recommendation here is when you have 60,000 sitting below 60,000, it's not additive. So that should be offset somehow, so it doesn't look as if, in other words, total other fund encumbrance is the 60,000 that's sitting right above it. It's not additive. I used my adding machine last night and added it up.
Yeah, where's that $60,000?
It should just be offset, you know, so it's not on the same
How
column.
long can you encumber funds?
If they're warrant articles or bond issues, they can be encumbered for a longer period of time. And a lot of times we put in non-lapsing or give a date that something, and those are automatic. The encumbrances that we have here, the auditors don't like to see it beyond 2 years. They feel that projects should be completed within 2 years. They do understand if we're applying for a grant and there's something going on, as long as there's some activity, they have allowed that to be encumbered.
The reason I raised the question, I'm talking to my two colleagues now.
I don't want to lose my train of thought here. The auditors don't like to see it. That doesn't tell me there's a limit.
No, there
So-
isn't. I've never seen anything where it says there's a limit on them.
Okay. Thanks.
But
They-
these are
they'll
only
raise
approved
it-
for a year.
They'll put it in the
So you go
exception.
through
I- no, I
Yeah,
understand.
right, yeah.
They may put it in the exception letter.
They
I was gonna
can,
say,
yes.
there may not be a limit, if the auditors don't like it, then you're gonna get not a clean audit. You don't want that.
It'll wind up
They'll
on the
find-
exception list.
There'll be a fact finding, or there'll be a finding where they'll mention this has been on here for 2 years and hasn't had any activity.
Yeah, but what does that mean to us in a practical measure? I mean,
Just you wanna look at it next time and take it off, or,
A not clean audit in the long term can affect your borrowing ability.
and your grant ability as well.
Yep.
The other issue is the other people sitting in this room won't raise it again next year is a question. The other exceptions of the law. The reason I raised the question about the Dells Dam is that as the planning board approved the subdivision down on the meadow, a two-building, I can't remember exactly how it came out, but during the process of review in Concord, the question of the Dells Dam project came up in terms of the floodplain. And because they're, in terms of that subdivision, or that building approval, they're altering underground stream water, I believe, in a particular way that needed to be approved by state engineers. The only reason I bring it up here is that the Dells Dam project came up as a question, given our problems with water down there on the meadow. So that's the only reason I brought it up.
And we met with them before we had the recent weather issue that spawned them to come, and one of the things that was brought up was we were looking at a reconstruction initially with these monies.
Yeah.
And the state had actually brought up options of repair, removal, or replacement. And we had stopped that process because there began to be a little bit of a debate between members of the Conservation Commission about whether removal or replacement was the best option. So, but I think FEMA will help walk us through.
Yeah.
what they see.
Okay. Thank you.
Are we ready to move on these encumbrances?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the total encumbrances for $549,602.
Is there a
Second.
second? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great enough. Review of proposed warrant articles.
The one you emailed yesterday, is that still?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes to it.
This, I think this is beyond the warrant articles. We haven't, as a board, even talked about the budget. Have we? Have we?
no, we haven't. I was gonna bring that up.
So I would suggest we start with the budget. I mean, we need to approve the budget, don't we?
When does the budget have to be approved by the selectmen?
The
The
11th.
11th,
The 11th, yeah?
yeah.
And do we have a work session scheduled between now and the 11th?
On the 11th.
On the 11th?
Should we do it now or on the 11th?
Well, it might be good to go through
We got
some of
it.
the overview of the budget.
Right,
The warrant, the first warrant article, or second warrant
Second
article
warrant
is the
article.
budget. So I think going over it, if you have any questions and thoughts in between now and the 11th, then we can address those. And on the 11th, you could make a motion to adopt the budget unless you wanted to do that today.
No, I would prefer going through a line item, by section, by department. We don't have any feedback from the budget committee, and as a
Right.
board, we've taken the position in the past, and we have a new board member here now, but the position was we wanted to hear from the budget committee before we may have put our approval on this budget.
Right. And last year, they provided some guidance. I think they said, let's try, or we narrowed it down to say, let's try to keep it around 3%. And we presented a budget to them, I think that was under 3%.
Right.
They still found additional places that they wanted to adjust after that.
Yep.
But this year, we don't have any guidance like that as of yet.
No, we don't, and I don't recall them asking for it.
Right. The budget that we've gone through, actually, the default you proposed with warrant articles creates a tax reduction both ways.
I agree with Milton, that we should tackle the budget without a recommendation. It probably then also goes for all the warrant articles.
Individual budget committee members have individual opinions on sections of the budget.
I'm sure.
It would be interesting for them to have their meeting and give us their recommendation.
If nothing else, their vote. But the recommendations would be nice. And like I just said, if that's the case with budget, what's different about the warrant articles? We don't have any input from them on any of these warrant articles that I'm aware of.
This is, I mean, this is a good report to get at this point because we're coming down to the final steps here, and so we've got a context within which to think about things.
Yeah, and I guess having the opportunity to go over some of the basics here with you, in that way, between now and...
Yeah, I do have some questions about offsetting funds, because your offsetting funds is really what brings us into a negative range.
But I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I haven't been through this process yet at the selectmen's level. I've attended some budget committee meetings, haven't been able to go to all of them. At what point does the board go through line by line and review the budget with you?
That's what we're talking about doing on the 11th.
On the 11th.
But the budget has to be approved on the 11th. We have to have an approved budget on the 11th. So we're supposed to get the data, discuss it, and approve it on the same day?
No,
You
it's
can
gonna
get the,
change
Yeah.
on the 16th at the bond budget hearing,
Based on what they...
based
Well,
on,
Yeah, that's 4
right,
days later.
Right.
yeah, so,
But as far as having a recommendation from the select board to deliberative session?
So when it comes to us on the 11th to review it line by line, and we recommend we make changes here or there or other.
I think we're gonna get it before the 11th, aren't we?
Yeah, we should have, do we have a copy? Do we have a copy to them?
I have your changes that you and I've gone through to save about $96,000.
Right, and do they have copies of the proposed budget in their hands?
Not, I haven't given them
Okay,
new copies yet because we need to incorporate these changes.
okay.
So we need to get the most up-to-date budget
What's the...
prior to having to act on it on the 11th.
Okay. What's the latest budget that the board has possession?
That would have been the 19th.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. So basically, these are the changes to the 19th budget. That was the
And we
most
need to
recent.
have that so we can study it before the 11th.
Right.
Okay, so I still go back to the process. I'm not trying to be difficult here, but we get the budget to review, probably the 10th. And we gotta review it, and we come to the meeting on the 11th, and then we make, do we make changes on the 11th, or is it an up or down vote on that budget?
You can change it right there.
We can make changes to that,
Sure.
that day, that is, assuming we all agree on it, or a majority agree on it.
This is looking really good. Again, it's partly because of the offsetting income that's coming in here that's dropping that bottom line. But we're looking at negative numbers here for a final budget.
No, I understand, I
No
understand,
other
I'm not
changes.
suggesting it's a bad
No,
budget,
you're
I'm just,
asking-
I have no
Fine to
idea
review.
what,
Right.
there's a couple of things in it that I think are, that from my attendance at the budget committee hearings that I had some concerns with. I was
Sure, me
waiting
too.
for us to get together, because we can't talk
Right,
until we have a meeting.
right.
I wanted to be able to discuss those things,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
all.
absolutely.
I can have an updated budget from what Andrew and I worked on yesterday, for you Tuesday. I can have it here waiting
But
for
the
you.
budget committee hasn't even seen it.
No, they will see it Tuesday night because they have a budget committee meeting Tuesday night.
Is Tuesday night New Year's? No, that's
No,
not the
it's
day
the
after.
second.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we aren't gonna talk about it as a group until the 11th.
Correct.
Unless we can meet over at your house in the basement and invite all of these people.
Over a few bottles of wine?
Over a few bottles of wine.
Although I would encourage you to, when we give you this updated budget, even with the budget you have, and Karen can provide the notes of the changes that we've made, please do go through it, and if you have questions, you know, get them to me, cite the section of the budget, you can cite the account number and line item, email them to me, and we can.
And we can do that individually?
Do it individually to us, yep.
Okay.
Yep,
To Andrew only.
right.
I understand.
Yeah, and I basically will be answering questions to you. Those, we can provide those questions and answers at the meeting on the 11th to help clarify that you don't want to get into a situation where you're having an online discussion.
These are the first line is adding in or increasing the ambulance cost to match the RFP or CALEX numbers that we're getting. The bottom section of this is reductions in the proposed budget that we're gonna bring to the budget committee on January 2nd. And these are all changes to the proposed budget, and it's a reduction of $96,153. And there might be a few other reductions, because when we put in,
This will all be included in what you're gonna send us.
right,
Okay.
right.
Yep. So, back to where we're at today. We're not gonna do the budget, and is there any reason we should go through all the other warrant articles?
Well, the only,
Not having heard anything from the budget committee regarding,
yeah, I have a technical question regarding the column that says offsetting funds, because it's an enormous number. The offsetting funds come to $1,084,591. My only question, and some of these I know are easy, let's go to the fire pumper, number 16. So it's a $500,000 request. $475,000 is offsetting funds, which brings the tax amount to $25,000. So it comes from
Grant funds.
grant funds, and you have, and these are verified grant funds.
You'll have to, I'm gonna refer to the chief.
No,
okay, let's go back to my question. Are we going to deal with the warrant articles today, or are we going to put them off to the 11th also, because we don't have any input from the budget committee?
Well, frankly, we may take a position with a fire pumper that we don't, we appreciate their input, but the liability is ours.
Well, the
We get back to
liability
the
is all
problem
ours, right?
of not, the three of us not coming to a decision as to how the budget should look, and then give it to them to criticize. We've decided, and there's no right way to do this, we've decided to let them make the decision and come to us. My question only has to do with the size of the offsetting fees, and because that's what creates a negative budget for us, just on a rough draft basis. So my question
But I
is
think what
only
Milt's
that.
getting at is, do we even want to get into these
Yeah,
or
we don't have
anything
to.
until?
I can ask my questions.
No, I understand, but
It's only because of the enormity of the number,
Yeah.
of the offsetting number, that I raised the question here, but we can wait. We can wait until after they take a look at this whole thing, which is what we started with back in the fall as a model, and let them give us their recommendations.
Either that, or if you felt comfortable going through any overview or questions at this time, just to.
Yeah, I personally don't have a problem going through these warrant articles. I mean, we aren't voting today to accept or not accept. I don't have a problem going through them and making sure we're familiar with them, and still waiting till the 11th, obviously, until we approve them or not.
So let's go through them then. So we're starting with, I guess we're starting with number 2,
Right.
the Mill Street sewer bond. I don't know what you want to do. Questions?
Yeah, I could just give you a quick overview
Yeah,
if you want.
just
So
real quick.
So, yeah, real quickly, the sub 5 project, which is the sewer project that's funded through the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund and town bond funds, they have approved an amendment to our application to allow us not to have to go through the full CWSRF process and to add Mill Street onto the project list for 2018. in order to do that, we have to bond the amount that's estimated for Mill Street. This will make it eligible for the CWSRF loan forgiveness for, I believe it's 12.5% of the project. Again, this is a project that we have to do anyways, and basically we're making it cheaper for the taxpayer and the sewer user by utilizing state revolving loan funds. So it's just an add-on to sub 5.
Number 3, Foster Hill Road repair, $500,000.
So we received a petition earlier this year from residents asking us to put Foster Hill Road onto the warrant this year. Our rough estimate was $500,000. The road itself is in very poor condition. It needs a complete reclaim and rebuild. This would basically allow us to raise the money through a bond. We don't anticipate that we'd be ready for construction on the project until 2019.
Thank you.
So that's why you'll see the adjusted request at $0 tax impact for this year.
So that 500,000, they expect you'll do that whole road for $500,000?
We're looking at, it looks like it's going to be more than that, but that was our preliminary number, and we had to get a number to throw onto the sheet.
Next is the budget and the warrant articles, in the different forms of warrant articles. So I would suggest we skip to number 5. We have the police department, a full-time patrol officer. Because of the timing, it's a 9-month number.
Yep.
At 63,000, that ought to be self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
Next is number 6, the municipal record retention system. That ought to be self-explanatory. Well, maybe it isn't. Stop me if I'm going too fast.
Yeah, what is the record retention system?
Chief?
It basically allows us to convert all of our paper files to PDF. A PDF system, which the state just allowed us to do that. Before we only could do it on microfiche.
Yep.
Our records room is full. I believe municipal records storage is full, and we need to convert those files.
So is this a fee to do that, or a fee for equipment, a cost for
Good
equipment?
question. That's actually the equipment and the software. And that particular item, although it's falling under the police department, we would train all the other municipal entities to use this equipment. So it's multi-use,
Yep.
even though it falls under the PD.
Okay. And so once you got the equipment, then your current staffing will, however you allocate staffing, there's not additional staffing costs to get the conversions?
I don't, no, none. Any questions on the officer?
Well, that was kind of where I was going. Is that, are you asking for additional staffing to be able to do that? Was kind of where I was going.
No,
with that.
the police officer, initially 2 years ago, he asked for 2. We saw what was going on with the current trends with our crime rate as far as the drug epidemic and mental health issues that our state is currently seeing. We're last in the nation anyhow when it comes to dealing with drugs and mental health, and Littleton isn't immune to that. We had 5 drug overdoses in Littleton last year, well in 2017, excuse me. 1's pending. We don't know whether that individual, we suspect it was a drug overdose. 1 of those was prescriptions, the other 4 were fentanyl. We need boots on the ground. We need to deal with this issue, and it's a personnel issue. That number would put us at our 2006 level of police officers.
That's the figures for full-time, for 1 full year is 94,621. For 9 months is 63,532.33.
So these are the same numbers that you, nothing's changed from the budget committee meeting? when
No,
we
sir.
discussed it?
No.
So, highway department, full-time truck driver, again, because of the timing, that's a 9-month figure. Next one's highway department, a new 10-wheel truck for $170,000.
That's
No.
put out over a lease, so you can see the
It's
impact.
40,000. The generator's 100. Where's it going down here?
Yeah, looks like
The
it's-
truck's 170.
So this, if we go back to the driver, so this is an additional, we're adding staff, and obviously it's increasing the budget, we're not just replacing someone.
Right.
Correct.
If it's
Right.
increasing the budget, it's an ad.
Is there anybody here to talk about that?
Joe's not here, but I can speak to it a little bit.
Yeah,
Just
because I don't think I must have missed the budget committee meeting where.
Yep, we talked about that. Really, the staffing there is 30% down from where it used to be, and demand hasn't lessened at all. In fact, over the past few years, we've been getting behind on a lot of things we need to do. I mean, for example, not having enough guys even just to throw at the roadside clearing. When we don't, when we have years where we don't roadside mow, those little saplings become trees. Now your crew is out there, with chainsaws, and that's just an example. Or another example is like our plow times. I think we're on a 6-hour cycle, which means when the plow truck goes past, for the most part, someone's house, it's not going to be another 6 hours till somebody comes by, based on the aging equipment and also other factors like health issues and things like that. We're usually down people as it is. And the 6-hour turnaround time really isn't really safe.
So is there a projection as to how that'll impact that cycle?
Joe can speak to that further, yeah.
I'm starting to remember some of this, so I think I may have been at
You
that
may have been
meeting.
there, yeah. And it's not just that, but
The
like.
clear answer is it'll shorten it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gonna shorten half an hour, it's gonna shorten it 3 hours,
It depends on equipment uptime too.
Yeah.
When we have our mechanic who plows and when something breaks, he comes off the line. If we have someone who gets injured or sick, last year we had, I think, a truck roll over and ribs broken. And I mean, as it is, we're light.
Yeah.
And whenever an incident like that happens, we're.
Yeah, I think I remember, I was at that budget committee meeting, because I'm remembering that
Yeah.
whole discussion.
Right.
This
Sorry.
isn't a topic for today, but when we get to signing these warrant articles, this is where homework has to be done, and we have to present, one of us presents that truck driver to the deliberative session. One of us presents the patrol officer. This is the area where there's some sensitivity among the voters when you start adding staff.
Mhm.
So this is small items, but they turn out to have a lot of emotion associated with them. My emotion is tied to the $136,666 on the offset for the truck. Is that an amount that's?
The plan on that is to do a lease or a lease purchase or
Okay.
loan.
Okay.
So we have to have an offset. The total truck costs $170,000. The first year, or the down payment, we're looking at $33,333.
They call it an equipment lease. All it is an installment purchase.
Right.
It's no lease.
So it's like a $1 buyout or something like that?
It isn't
Actually,
even
it's
a
a final
buyout.
payment
Final
buyout.
buyout.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've covered the truck. Now we're up to a public works generator and fire department doors for $65,000.
Yep. So.
Transfers, go ahead.
Oh,
I guess we're
want
gonna go through them all.
Yeah.
You want an explanation? Let's see, I think I have that, USDA. So that involves doors, framework at the fire department, and the generator and wiring at the highway department. There's a USDA grant involved, and that's where the offsetting funds for this would come. And it's about, when you take into account the uneligible expenses that are incurred, it's about, we would be having USDA pay for about 49% of the total project. So this is work that needs to be done.
Transfer station,
And the
This
specifics
is
of
their
that-
normal way that they use their unreserved fund balance every year. And they use it to put back into repairs, replacements, equipment, and building improvements. And they use their funds to do that.
So when they were discussing at the budget committee meeting, I recall the question came up, why isn't there a repair or maintenance budget? Something
There-
odd about that budgeting process.
There is a small amount in their budget, but it may not be enough to do everything that they want to do, and they have a balance at the end of the year that can only be used for the transfer station improvements or repairs, anything pertaining to their expense line.
Okay.
And this is their way of getting authority to use those funds, because it's not where the selectmen can approve use of it. It has to be done by town meeting.
They're asking for a new trash compactor, which is gonna be financed.
No, this actually is going to use some of their fund balance with the remaining amount of $10,000 that will have to be covered by the taxpayers. I don't want to have them completely wipe out their fund balance. They need to be able to have a little bit there for an emergency if it comes up, but using what they can comfortably use, and there would be a small amount coming from the taxpayers to cover that. I can't tell you how old their other trash compactor is, how old it is. But
It's old enough that they can't get parts for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Pretty old.
Next is a transportation improvement fund.
So I threw up just a quick calculation about this one. This is RSA 261-153, which authorizes municipalities to put a $5 registration fee on registrations, and to capture those funds to use, to offset or build for grant matches for things that we need. So some of the things that are authorized for its use are parking, sidewalks, roads, and grant match. Some of the thought behind doing this is we start to build up a fund to solve some of our parking issues. There will be some expense to that, and a rough estimate of a 5-year after that was enacted would be to be able to build up about $175,000 that could be used instead of tax money to solve some of those issues.
So does this $3,500 represent the number of registrations we have?
That's the admin.
Oh, that's the admin. So 5%, is that right?
50 cents
50
for every
cents.
registration that's done through this can be used to offset admin cost. So the town clerk will be collecting additional 50 cents, and we estimated, and it can be done on campers or RVs or boat trailers, that
Right.
type of thing. It's only on vehicles.
And so the actual amount brought into a transportation fund, and I don't know if we would include that on here because you're not immediately offsetting tax, but it would be additional revenue, would be the first year $25,000, and then each year thereafter, based on the number of registrations that we have, would be $37,500.
That's to put into the fund.
That's right.
But the $3,500 on here is revenues that are gonna come in 2018 from this $5 fee.
Okay, so we're talking about a $5 fee added to registrations, and an additional 50 cents that can be allocated, or 50% of that? can be-
50
50 cents of that.
Gotcha, okay, all right.
That better be well explained, because that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
right.
warrant
I
article,
could
we're
draw-
gonna have to review that a few times in
Yeah.
terms of how it's worded.
That's a good point. We'll make a chart for that.
I got your EMS budget.
Yep.
Okay, the EMS budget, are we going over that
Yeah.
now, or are we gonna wait on that?
So this just represents the new numbers if we continue with what we're doing?
No.
No,
Oh.
this is a change in direction. So this is on here as contingency. If the commission moves forward with recommending a fire-based EMS, this creates that budget to do so.
Okay.
So,
Going back to my offsetting question here. So it's 140,000 on a request, 345,000 on an offset, which leaves a minus 205. What's interesting about minus numbers is that at the bottom of your budget, it goes negative. But it's based on these numbers, and so I don't want to use the word phantom numbers here, but tell me how real this is.
Well, if we do have a fire-based EMS, we will be reducing the proposed budget, the ambulance line of the proposed
Right.
budget. So the only way of taking that out is part of this warrant article and saying this will be subtracted from the proposed budget line,
Right.
and we're estimating a total of $205,000.
Is the 345,000 listed as offsets, is this projected income coming in the first
As
year?
well, yes.
Both, yeah.
As well as,
It's a revenue neutral budget,
right,
has to be. So we're gonna be taking in $140,025
right,
to offset the expenditures.
okay.
Anything above that will fall to the fund if the fund is allowed to be created.
I get it now, I got it.
And then the 205,000 is monies that we're gonna be reducing the proposed budget by.
Got it, thank you.
So depending on the recommendation of the commission, this warrant article may be changed or come right out.
Come right up.
Could,
come right
could,
out.
yes.
Okay.
The next one is with, along the same lines, as a contingency to create the revolving fund,
Yeah.
which would operate similar to how the sewer fund operates in being a revenue neutral line item.
16 is a fire pumper.
Yep, and I don't know, Chief, you wanna?
Well, 15 is the
Oh,
ambulance,
15 is the ambulance.
which may or may not
Right, that's-
happen. 16 is the pumper for $500,000. It costs as much as a new road.
Hold on a second, before we go on to the pumper, so we got a separate warrant article for the ambulance. What happens if, if the fire-based EMS is approved, but an ambulance is not? Why, wouldn't you want one warrant article?
This is for a new ambulance.
Oh, okay.
If it's decided by the commission to do in-house EMS, the thought was to buy with some of the funds that are set aside for the ambulance expenditures in the general fund budget to buy a used ambulance to start out with.
And if the recommendation is to take one of the other proposals, that goes.
It goes away, sure.
Yes.
Okay. So if that, for some reason that doesn't pass, but the fire-based EMS does, we've got it.
Got a way to fix it.
All right.
Yep.
We're looking at a 1948 Buick. 14 feet long, 12 feet wide.
Station wagon.
Pumper,
Yes, Ross used it for something.
Chief, you gonna talk about the pumper?
Sure. The warrant article is similar to the warrant article we established several years ago to apply for the grant funding to purchase a new tanker. Basically, the $25,000 we're requesting represents 5% of the cost of a new fire pumper. We have to approve and appropriate those funds prior to applying to the grant process. We have to guarantee that the money's in play. If not, then we're ineligible, we can't apply. That $25,000 represents 5% of the cost. Similar, again, with the tanker, where the tanker, the actual price for the tanker was just over $300,000. The town of Littleton ended up paying $15,000 for the truck. We're pursuing the same course of action to acquire a new pumper. What we're asking the voters to do is approve a warrant article for $25,000, give us the opportunity to pursue the grant, which is highly competitive, and we'll see how we do. It took us 2 years to acquire the tanker. It may take us as long to acquire the pumper, but we'd like to have the $25,000 to put us in the race.
And the question that will inevitably come up is if you don't get the grant, what happens? You don't spend the money, is the answer.
We don't spend the money. Actually, in the first year, when we just missed it by decimal points, we encumbered the $15,000, and we tried again a year later, where we were successful in acquiring the grant.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Conservation Commission, unexpended funds.
This is an estimate of what they have left of their budget every year. They have had a warrant article on here that whatever they had left from their budget, they put into their funds, but it has to have an authorization from town meeting.
Right, they've done this for years. Next.
So why isn't that just encumbered?
It can't be encumbered if it's put into a trust fund.
Oh, okay.
It's money that's in fund balance, it closes out to fund balance, and then it's withdrawn through this warrant article to put in their trust funds.
Okay.
LADC transfer of town property. Anybody have any questions about what that is?
Yeah, we've heard about it a few times.
19 is the Opera House building maintenance.
They are continuing to try to improve the building down there with little bits of money and trying to finish up the spare area right now that is off the tower room, so at some point hopefully they could rent them. And we're not finding a lot of interest in people wanting to come in and upfit the place themselves. They'd like to come into a majority of it being finished. Now we have some monies that we encumbered for electrical work and for energy efficiency, but we need to do walls and painting and molding and etc. and hopefully get some renters in there.
We do have 2 full-time leasees there now, so.
In very small offices.
And more people interested, but we need to have finished space.
Keno.
Straightforward.
This is the one that we're basically required to put onto the warrant. The voters don't have to approve it, but if we don't, then we're reduced in the amount of state school aid that's available.
And we need to amend the dog ordinance.
It's just updating the current ordinance and merging 3A that you put into effect this year into 3, so we don't have 2 separate ordinances.
Gotcha. Hawkers and peddlers, what are we doing with that?
That might actually be removed, but we're just trying to determine whether we have to use an ordinance change to charge a fee for individuals applying for a criminal record, so that they have a criminal record check when they apply. Who pays for it? The whole 9 yards. We're going through the legal process now.
Petition warrant articles, we have 2 from the chamber. One for 11,150 and one for 2655. Beautification appropriation, that's the flowers along Main Street. And event appropriation, I'm not quite sure what that's all about.
I believe it's used for coordinating the events.
Yeah.
So the events
Try to acquire other, try to attract other events to come.
I don't understand why Foster Hill Road's on there, but it's marked in yellow, so that means something.
It means we received it.
Pardon?
We received it. We have that petition in hand. Green ones, they just notified me of what their intent was and what amount.
So
That wasn't a petition, that was a petition to have the selectmen fix the road.
It was a petition to add it to the 2018 warrant.
Oh, it was?
Yes, it was.
Oh, I thought it was only to make the selectmen fix the road.
Yeah,
I thought we
I
had
was
to-
a little confused on that too, and.
It has no dollar amount, so therefore we have the dollar
Yeah,
amount.
I thought we had to go out
up.
with shovels and get it.
Well, that was my question. I mean, does this mean that, I mean, we talked to, the 500,000, we had to put something there. Let's just say it's not enough to do the whole road, which I suspect it's not. Does this warrant article mean we have to do it if it's passed?
No, it means we have to put it on the warrant. It probably won't get voted because there's no value to it or anything.
Well, my concern is the legal implications of having it, if it's on the warrant and it'll get, especially $0, it's gonna get voted on.
It could be voted yes, but we don't have the money, there's no authorization there to give us the money to do it.
Okay.
So we can, yes, you can vote yes to do the road, but without the money you can't do the road. So that's why there's a bond warrant article up here for 500,000 at this time to do the road.
Let's say, for talk's sake, this other bond up here for the road is not there, and this warrant article comes through without any dollar amount. I'm just not trying to understand the process. It gets approved. That if there's no dollar amount, then the selectmen aren't required to go out and get it done. It's just, can't do it because you didn't give us money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's confusing because the petition was petitioning to put something else on the warrant. I mean, in a way, it's just a little confusing to have that on there.
Okay. I thought that petition only told us to go fix the road, but
So technically, this petition is,
Okay. So-
even if we didn't have that up there, this is worthless. They can't petition us to put it on the 2018 warrant at the 2018 vote. We couldn't do it until 2019.
A petition can be submitted
Yeah.
for anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we had one about fishing at the Dells at one time.
yeah, I remember that.
No, I understand, but if we didn't put anything up there,
There
this-
wouldn't be money
Wouldn't
to
go
fix
anywhere.
it.
we couldn't do it, and they would have to submit another petition. It's just never ending. You know what I mean? You can't.
And I think it's in the wording of the
Yeah,
original
yeah,
petition.
okay.
And now we're into the petition warrant articles, the first of which is Grafton County seniors need $35,000, tax impact of .048.
Does white mean you just haven't received anything from them?
Anything, no.
And you're just assuming from last year, you put it in the last year?
These are the ones, right,
What's the date for the final?
January 9th.
January 9th, and then you're looking at this in the 11th.
Yeah.
Well, better sense.
So green means it's been put in.
They've just contacted me to let me know.
Yellow means
they
it's
know.
received,
It's received,
and white is just from last year's number, you're
Yeah.
assuming it's gonna come.
right.
Well, all this, we can talk about each of them if you want, but there's a bigger question.
Yeah.
And the bigger question is, we as a board, over the past several years, have chosen to take no action on this so-called social service articles because we didn't feel we had enough information about the agency itself, and in particular its financial status, to make a recommendation, yea or nay. Because of the way the state law is written, inaction means it has to be recorded as a nay. Milt, I believe, found a form used by the county.
Well, I actually called our county commissioner.
Got us a form from the county that they use to qualify those kinds of applications, and sent it to all of us, I believe. The question is, should we utilize that form, but I think more importantly, do we have time to utilize that form this year? The time answer would probably come from Andrew Lucille.
No,
No.
no.
That makes the question move.
There is a second question. Some towns have a warrant article that's worded in such a way that all of the petition social service articles appear under it. And so it's organized as one warrant article, yes or no, and all, in our case, if there's like 12 or 13 of them totally, there's only one vote, and it's just on that warrant article. What's good about it is that it gives the voters the bottom line amount. Like in our case, it's, I think, 16 cents. That if they all got voted in, it would be, whatever the amount. That gives the voter information they haven't had in the past. One of our concerns, other than not knowing enough about these various agencies perhaps, is also people just have a tendency to just vote, and they don't have a calculator in the voting booth with them adding up what this is costing. Clearly, if this is an example, 16.5 cents is or is not considered to be, big impact. The negative to this is that one you may want to see voted in may get voted down if the whole list goes down. But there are, I think your community does, they organize it this way. And I know some downstate communities do.
But it's too late to do that this year, isn't it? Because we already have some petitioned. You
I don't know.
gotta have
We
some.
We
can
can format.
include them all in that one,
Oh,
and it
okay.
can be amended. If somebody doesn't like one agency, they can amend it at the deliberative session.
And pull it out.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
so-
negative to that is if there's an agency that a voter doesn't feel is worthwhile, chances are he or she is not gonna stand up at deliberative session and say so.
Yeah.
And therefore, you can't vote against that agency. That happened a number of years ago with an agency, and I won't name them because we're public, but they had asked for money year after year after year. They were on the list, and it became public knowledge that they were making a lot of money. And one year they were finally defeated. And it was because they were doing well. Or I shouldn't say that. My guess is it's because they were doing well. The voters decided to not support them anymore. They are no longer on the list. So the system worked. The public found out that they didn't need to be supported by tax dollars and chose not to.
Not a question for today, but it's just one that's floating out there. So.
Well, we can't ask for the other detail. The question that we need to determine by the 11th is whether we're going to group them together or not. Karen, you wanted to?
Well, in 2008, I believe we did have one time that we grouped them all as one. And the responses I had heard from taxpayers is they didn't like that and they voted no because there was one or two on that list that they refused to support. And they wanted to have the choice of who they wanted to support.
Yeah, that's the negative in that
That's,
format.
that's what happens. If you're upset with one, you could hurt 12.
Yeah, what are we trying to accomplish by grouping them,
Only,
other than making it one article?
You know, you can speak to it
So-
at deliberative session. You know, you can say that all of these petition warrant articles add up to 16.5 cents. We can say it, you know, and that kind of takes care of it. It's just that some towns have formatted it that way, and it does give the voters an immediate piece of information in the voting booth as to what it's going to cost.
Oftentimes at deliberative session, they will be voted as a group to be put on the ballot.
Right.
They still go on the ballot separately,
Right.
but they remain on the ballot separately.
The rule on that changed.
Yeah, you can't do a
Can't
group
do it.
anymore.
Oh, that's right, you can't do it anymore.
No.
That's right.
Yeah,
I was
that's
thinking
2
of the
years
old
ago
days.
that happened.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm.
Okay.
I've got a third question that I'd like to bring up, and that's about the selectmen's position, recognizing that we can't, that it's either yay or nay, regardless of what we do. I question not taking a position. I understand the issue of not having enough information, but presumably we have opinions on these, and presumably when we vote, we I don't know, maybe you don't vote on a particular article because you don't have the information. But I question the wisdom of the selectmen not taking a position on it, and whether we should continue that policy.
We don't have to, we don't have to do that. We can, the three of us can vote on each one. You can decide yourself whether you want to support it or not.
Right, but what it says on that, if the board decides not to take a position on it, it's gonna say nay on there, regardless of what any one individual feels about it.
Well, then we can vote if you want.
If we get 2 saying no, it's a no. If you get 2 saying yes, it's a yes. If it's 3 saying yes, it's obviously a yes.
Well, I assume if 2 say no, it's a selectmen do not support 2 to 1. Or vice versa.
Well, how does it say?
But my question is the whole, there's been a board policy that we didn't take a position on
Right.
it. Do we have to take a vote on whether we want to continue that policy, or?
We can talk about that and
Yep.
change it if we need to.
How does it read if the vote is yay, abstain?
It would be 2 for, it would be 2 for it, so it would be a yes.
It'd
They
be 2 to
support it.
nothing?
But we would also put in the
One
warrant
abs-
article, one
One
abstain.
abstain.
One
We
abstention.
would include it in the warrant article that one abstained.
Yeah, in the warrant
Sure.
article, in the parentheses, it would say 2 and 1 abstain?
Yes.
So if you had a yes, a no, and an abstain, it would be a no.
It would be a no, because you only have 1 yes.
Right.
Right?
Okay, so in that case, it would say, Board of Selectmen do not support this,
Right.
1 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention.
Yeah, 1.
Okay.
Yeah, we can decide that, and we can either continue the policy or not.
You know, it's interesting, when it got to the committee, whatever committee it is down in Concord, House Committee, we actually, again, Representative Hennessy proposed that we be given a third option, which is just a pass on it, so it'd be a yes, no, or a pass, or whatever the wording would be. And the committee ultimately voted no, but there was a lot of discussion, we got some yes votes on the argument that we posed in the past, which is we don't have enough information.
Okay.
Okay, we're done with the warrant articles and the budget?
Do you want to review the numbers on the bottom of this? Where the totals are?
I
Tax rate.
suppose we can, they're gonna change, but go ahead.
Well, the 2017 tax rate was $8.51. With the estimated default budget and all of the warrant articles, if the default budget is what's voted on and all the warrant articles are approved, we estimate the tax rate's gonna be $8.31. That's a 20-cent reduction. In the proposed side of that, the town tax rate for 2017 was the $8.51. The estimated proposed tax rate with all of the warrant articles being approved is $8.39. We're estimating a decrease, if that proposed budget is passed, of minus 0.12 cents, or minus 12 cents per thousand. And then we have the total tax rate here, but that can change based on the school budget, the county budget.
State funding budget implications.
And one thing to keep in mind is, these are really just projections of the tax rate, because the tax rate's not just based on the expense side, but the revenues, and then also the valuation. And there is a lot of change happening right now in valuation. We're finding changes, and I mean, just within the past week, we've added $2 million to the overall valuation just from finding some corrections. So there'll be more.
You don't think there's any chance that the valuations will adversely impact the rate?
I mean, there's always the big one, which is the dam.
Yeah.
And, we're talking with them anyways, but when we don't have a multi-year agreement in place, there's a chance for fluctuation based on energy markets. But if that remains the same, then I wouldn't think so. In fact, we're seeing, a good solid growth in sales, and commercial, industrial, and residential sales are up significantly from what I see in our files. One of the things that looking at for next year is actually, right now we're doing a quarter of the county year, and then on the first year we were going to do a statistical update based on all the new data. And while the market's increasing and seeing that we have a number of issues in our assessing file, our assessing numbers, and a lot of that's something you can't fix overnight. It's been created over at least a decade of lack of, I think, maybe proper methods and procedures by a previous assessing firm. But over the course of years, we should get that back in line. And with that, what I'm looking at is potentially doing a statistical revaluation next year to get us back to our, as close as possible to the 100% equalization ratio. Because all properties are applied to that equalization ratio right now. There's basically a 7% discount.
Yeah, so that'll significantly impact the dam.
It would.
So we need to be near that one.
Yeah, and, you know, in looking at that, that may be something that we want to do every year, depending on how it comes out. When a property that we have on the books is assessed at 115,000 and it sells for 250, every one of those that happens takes that ratio and creates a larger spread.
But that does imply a higher cost on an annual basis to do the assessments, because you're...
Yeah. If you look at the revenue generation from that, it's well outweighs the cost.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and I've even looked at a scenario where right now we're in a contract, and we have a good contract, we do have a new assessing firm, but if you look at the size of Littleton, the amount of activity and the amount of change that happens in sales, we could probably save money for the taxpayer and have a more consistent reflective tax rate by eventually moving to full-time assessor staff, because they could actually look at the assessing on a day-to-day basis and keep things. That's something not for now, into the
Down the
future.
road.
So,
Especially if a recession triggers, the conversation goes exactly the other way.
yeah, don't look.
Last item on our agenda is the easements at the River District. Andrew, you wanna?
Yep. Just pull up
There wasn't anything in our packets regarding that, was there?
No, there was in Andrew's summary though.
right. And if I can get this to open. It's already here. So so most of the easements that we're getting for the River District are for, we're receiving temporary and permanent easements. We do have one, if I can't get this to open for some reason. We do have one where we have to provide an easement, and I could show you on the map, but basically it's a section of parking spaces where as part of the River District project now and in the past, we've been given easements by this property owner, and it's taken away spaces that they had for parking. They continue to own a significant, like about 50% of the front half of parking spaces that are in our project area. And so one of the things that we were doing for the property owner would be to provide them an easement so they can retain those parking spaces with their property. We're not actually, you know, it's not like we're actually giving them parking that they didn't have before. We're just securing that. Part of the requirements of the grant is that every piece of land that we use is either secured by us or secured by the property owner, and we have a clear delineation of ownership. Now, for us to give an easement, it's considered transfer, and as part of that, we have to go through the RSA 4114A process, which requires the two public hearings.
We're certainly familiar with
You
that.
know that. Yeah. So this is one we can get on the ground floor and do it right, but what I'd be looking for, if you're willing to do that for this property owner, would be to make a motion to direct us to begin the RSA 4114A process. And we could even set the dates today.
I think I already have them.
Do we need to do that today?
We need to approve it.
Approve the
moving forward
process.
the process.
I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I'm uncomfortable making a motion on something we haven't talked about in the past. And in fact, there's, a guideline recommendation that selectmen should not be presented with things that they need to vote on at the same meeting that they haven't had some chance to review. But, in this case, it's not a money issue. It's just the immediacy of being presented something for the first time and being asked to vote on it is operationally, it's just not a good thing.
Right. And normally I would like to get something like this way ahead of time, but we're on a severe time crunch with the grant monies. And also, we were just notified about the requirement of the easement by our, and the 4114A process by our attorney. So it's really to keep things moving so we can get the project out to bid. This is the one where we've got the extension for the CDBG and the EDA monies.
Well, all we're really voting on is to start the process and then discuss it, so we're not actually voting to
That's right.
grant it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I do have a picture of
Further
the
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
2-1. That concludes the agenda. However, there are one or more items that need to be discussed in non-public session.